Do SAIC welcome the decision of the Government of National Unity to invite Elon Musk to come and invest in South Africa?
Well, SAIC doesn't really have an official position on that particularly.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, if you're asking me personally, what I think, I mean, foreign investments generally are good.
Yeah.
Foreign investments are generally welcomed because they come back to grow the economy, especially where your own domestic capital is not enough or sufficient. You obviously then rely on other markets to come and develop your own economies. But we're studying that development closely because you don't know what Starlink will do to local players, your
Yeah, yeah.
Vodacom, your MTN, in the telecommunications space. I know they're saying that they want to broaden access to internet for rural areas and make it cheaper and more efficient and whatever. But so equally, also competition is welcomed because these players, oh Vodacom, MTN, they've had a
The,
monopoly and
those ones are, I'm sorry, those ones are big. They're like small ones. If you go to Davidson,
mm,
there's a black owned Wi-Fi called EKJ Wi-Fi,
mm,
whereby you buy like one voucher and then you recharge for 5 rand, you get unlimited access to Wi-Fi the whole day.
is it?
Yeah. So if you have guys like Elon Musk who are coming now, those guys are completely gone.
Yeah, so I mean that's the downside of foreign investments or foreign companies coming to invest in your country is that obviously now it broadens competition and it actually eliminates some of the local players in the game. So, but we're I mean, look, like I said, foreign investments are always welcome. I'm just cautious of Elon Musk's interest in global politics and in wanting to influence geopolitical developments more than I am the and it presents kind of like a cybersecurity risk. I mean that's why Tesla, I mean not Tesla, what's this company? Is it SpaceX?
Yeah, SpaceX where they make these things.
Starlink, Jara, Starlink. It's not allowed in China, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's been banned in China. It's been banned in certain regions in the world where they just don't feel comfortable with them having that much access to their servers and systems. I mean, if you combine, the data that Tesla has, Starlink has, and Twitter, now X has, Musk, there's nothing that they don't know.
Yeah.
And that potentially is a risk in terms of just cybersecurity and all those things. So, does South Africa and Africa want that for itself, where one man has so much power and intelligence essentially over, your country's information and also I don't know if that's a conversation that people want to have. Yeah, but so I think the presence of Starlink in South Africa and in Africa presents a cybersecurity risk that I think we must be careful of. And I think Musk's, interest in geopolitical developments should also be taken with a pinch of salt. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but also you don't want business people to have so much influence over politicians because they end up serving, their relationship and not necessarily the
People.
the people themselves. But luckily, I mean, here in South Africa, I'm confident in some of the political players' ability to look after the interest of, their people over certain. I mean, there's been many times where our politicians, the president has gone against, big business and a mandate and chosen, the what people want on the ground. So I'm not too worried in South Africa per se, but I am worried internationally over the growing risk that presents where one businessman, controls and influences literally all heads of states in the world, because of this big company that he runs that has all this data and and the money potentially that that he has. So it's not something people should just welcome blindly.
Yeah.
Also,
Because it's Elon Musk.
because it's Elon Musk,
Yeah.
but he's a controversial business guy. But I mean, who knows? It could be good, it could be bad. But I'm just saying we should be careful how we approach it.
I really understand some of the issues that you're considering if he's coming, and SAEC as being the biggest uh, organization that focuses on issues around young people. I've said this to Kanakana before. I don't think that there is any organization in the country that is doing the kind of work that SAIC is doing. You guys are on your own space. NYDA is doing a different thing. You guys are also doing a different thing. So you guys have access to advisors of ministers of presidency. Have you maybe voiced some of the concerns looking at the president reaching out to Elon Musk to invite him to their country to come and invest here?
Look, and I guess it's quite flattering that you and we get some of these things a lot. But I mean, Psych is a new entity that I think is trying in the space, and
He's not trying, he's doing well, has
and
broad access.
and so I agree with you. We do have the access that you talk about, but again, for us, sometimes these things, especially when it comes to the politics of it, we try to stay away.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've said to some of the people you mentioned, some of the concerns that I personally have, not necessarily SAIC, but I mean, I've got an open relationship with many of the people you talk about, and I share my views about what I think is right and what I think is wrong, and they'll tell me what they think, but I don't think as SAIC we dive into the politics of whether geopolitics or so. But I mean, I've got a personal relationship with some of these people, and we talk about politics and what do you think of the world, and and I share some of my criticisms of what I don't agree with what is being done, or I agree here. And I think that's what has sustained some of these relationships, your honesty. Being able to say what you believe and what you think all the time, without necessarily being rude or without necessarily being undermining or wanting to but also you mustn't always overestimate your influence and create an impression that you've got more influence than you have, because I mean, who cares what I think? I mean, I just share my views, and whoever listens. But I never want a situation where I create an impression to people that I've got the ear of whoever, whether it's the DP or a certain minister or the president, and then think that those people listen to what we have to say. They care a lot about what young people are thinking, so that's why they might want to hear you out sometimes. But I am in no shape or form can influence the political direction of some of the people that you mentioned. And ours as young people is to always, whenever we have an opportunity to be in some of these spaces, share our views, be honest. But I would not want society to ever think, or people to ever think, that we influence politicians, or we have that capacity to influence anyone. We just happen to have some sort of access that we share our opinions from time to time.
So far, looking at the government of national unity, I know you personally and Kana being members of certain political organization, when looking at the votes results, you were disappointed, but later on, you guys embrace the results of the votes to say this is what people decided. Let's just accept it. The government of national unity was formed, and now looking at everything that has unfolded, the issues, the conflict they have, like political parties always like fighting each other. But at the end of the day, I see some of the ministers are committed likes of Gayton McKenzie. Looking at the national, the government of national unity so far and everything that they have done, Minister Ronald Lamola is always out there international trying to attract investors, and studies shows that he has attracted more than billions and billions of investment to the country. Do you think it's working?
Yeah, I think, look, like you said, I mean, again, I speak in my personal capacity when I
Mm,
say that, we are people who actively uh, campaigned and wanted the African National Congress to win elections.
mm,
Um, and it's starting to show now with how they handled their transition in terms of the type of leadership that is there in the African National Congress. I mean, um, we were called all sorts of names when we were saying that we believe this would be the best electoral results if the ANC were to win.